Kuzuzampo. Welcome to Bhutan e-learning project. I'm Ishi Chamso. The lesson is for Key Stage 2, classes 4 to 6. Today, we are going to learn about direct and indirect speech. First of all, let me tell you about the outline of today's lesson. In this lesson, we are going to learn about direct speech and indirect speech. We are also going to look at how to convert from direct to indirect speech and from indirect to direct speech. We are also going to look at some of the changes in pronoun, modal verbs, time and place. So are you ready? Let's get started. Well, what is direct speech? Direct speech is when you report the actual or the exact word of someone, meaning it is the repetition of the actual word that someone has spoken. In other words, we do not change the person's word. And direct speech are written within an inverted commas. Now I'll give you an example of a direct speech. She said to me, I'm looking for my keys. It's an example of a direct speech. Now let us look at the phrases and the words, what it means. For instance, she here refers to the subject. Said to refers to the reporting verb. And it's followed by comma. And within that inverted comma, you will see a sentence or a statement, I'm looking for my keys. Now that is a direct speech. And that is how we write direct speech. Okay, now, let's look at indirect speech. What is indirect speech? It is a report on what someone said or told. It is actual or exact word that are transformed, changed, or paraphrased. In direct speech, speeches are normally not written or not enclosed in an inverted comma. So let me give you an example of indirect speech. She told me that she was looking for her keys. Once again, she told me that she was looking for her keys. If you look at the second sentence, she was looking for her keys. Now the same sentence, I'm looking for my keys, the same sentence, I'm looking for my key, is being paraphrased and changed. And while changing, I'm looking for my keys became, she was looking for her keys. To make the concept of indirect speech more clearer, let us take an example using a timeline. So look at the timeline here. About weeks ago, Nobita said, I'm busy. And that happened in the past. Now, if Doraemon wants to report the same speech at the present moment, from the Doraemon's point of view, what Nobita said describes a situation that happened in the past. Therefore, I am busy. Am, the word am is changed to was, since the statement was spoken in the past. So, the Doraemon would report the speech as, Nobita told me that he was busy. So are you clear now? Okay, now let's move on to next topic. Okay? Now let us look at tense changes in indirect speech. For example, if the statement is written in simple present in direct speech, when it is converted to indirect speech, that statement, you should write that statement in simple past. And I will give you an example. So let's look at the example. Dicky said, I always were Kira. Always were Kira, always were. Okay, the were is in simple present. Now, the rule says that when you write in reported speech, it should be simple past. So, were becomes wore, and the sentence will look like this. Diki said that she always wore Kira. Let us look at the second example. I write poetry, she said. Write is in simple present. Now, when you change this into reported speech, it becomes, she said that she wrote poetry. Write becomes wrote. Now, if you look in the reported speech carefully, you will find that that is put within the bracket, right? It shows that the use of the word that is optional. Even if you don't write that, the sentence still becomes correct. For example, she said she wrote poetry is a correct answer. Or you can choose to say she said that she wrote poetry. Both are correct. Similarly, simple past in direct speech will change to past perfect in indirect speech. And let me show you with examples. We saw a movie at Luger's Theatre, said Pema. So in reported speech, it becomes, Pema said he had seen a movie at Luger's Theatre. So can you see the highlighted words? Was in simple past changes to had seen in past perfect. Let's look at another example. He said, I saw volunteers working in the hospital. So when we change this into indirect speech, it becomes, he said that he had seen volunteers working in the hospital. So saw changes to had seen. Now let's look at how present perfect changes to past perfect. For example, let's look at the example. Karma said, where have they gone? In reported speech, Karma wondered where they had gone. Have gone in present perfect changes to had gone in past perfect. Now let's look at another example. You have seen that movie many times, said her father. In reported speech, it should be written as, her father said she had seen that movie many times. Have seen in direct speech changes to had seen in indirect speech. So have seen is present perfect, changes to had seen in past perfect. The same rules applies here. Okay? For example, the present continuous in direct speech changes to past continuous in indirect speech. For example, he said, I'm looking for a dog. Am looking is in present continuous. Now when you change this statement into indirect speech, it changes to was looking. Am looking changes to was looking. For example, see, he said that he was looking for a dog. In example 2, I'm doing my homework, said the girl. The girl said that she was doing her homework. See, am doing changes to was doing. Am doing here is present continuous. It changes to was doing, that is past continuous. Similarly, past continuous changes to past perfect continuous. So now let's look at some of the examples here. We were living in Gemina during those days. They said to me. So when we change that statement to direct speech, it becomes, they told me that they had been living in Gemina during those days. Let's look at another example. Thou asked, were you studying when she called? In reported speech, it changes to, thou asked whether he had been studying when she called. If you look here, were studying is in past continuous. And when you change that to reported speech, were studying becomes had been studying, which is past perfect continuous. Now let's look at some interesting facts. Past perfect remains past perfect. Past perfect continuous remains past perfect continuous. Meaning, if the statement is written in past perfect or in past perfect continuous, in the reported speech, it does not change. It remains same. I will show you an example. Okay? Example, I'd gone to visit my mother, he said. Had gone to is a past perfect. And when you change this into reported speech, it remains, the rule says it remains same. He explained that he had gone to visit his mother. So had gone. So it does not change. Okay? Similarly, past perfect continuous remains same. For example, the teacher said he had been watching you. Teacher said that he had been watching you. So it does not change in reported speech. Now let us look at some of the exceptions. The tense of indirect speech does not change if the reporting verbs are in present tense. I repeat, if the reporting verb are in present tense, or if in direct speech you find say, says, or will say. For example, Lopen Dawa says the exam will be next week. In reported speech, it remains same. Lopen Dawa says that the exam will be next week. Did you get me? Again, another exception is the tense of indirect speech does not change if the words within the quotation marks are universal truth or habitual habits. For example, the earth revolves around the sun, or the sun rises from the east. These are an example of universal truth. So if the sentence is, the earth revolves around the sun, said the teacher. So in reported speech, it remains same. The teacher said that the earth revolves around the sun. Let's look at another example of habitual habit. The boy said that he brushed his teeth every day. In reported speech, it remains same. The boy said that he brushes his teeth every day. Now let's look at the rules for the change of pronoun in reported speech. I in direct speech becomes he or she in reported speech. We in direct speech becomes they in reported speech. You in direct speech becomes I, she, he, we, they in reported speech. And the pronouns such as they, she, he, it remains same in reported speech. Now let's look at some of the changes in modal verbs. Will changes to would, can changes to could, must changes to had to, may changes to might, shall changes to would, or should in reported questions. And there are also exceptions, okay? The modal verbs such as would, could, might, should, ought to, used to do not change while converting from direct to indirect speech. Let's look at examples of modal verbs. We will be there. Karma promised. Karma promised that they would be there. I shall buy you a pen, said her uncle. Her uncle said that he would buy her a pen. Shall I open the door? She asked. She asked if she should open the door. He said, I must work hard. He said that he had to work hard. I can't help you, said Dickie. Dickie said he couldn't help me. So if you look at the modal verbs, they are all highlighted. See, shall, should, must, had to, can't, couldn't. Right? Now let's look at other words related to place and time. So if you look at this slide, you will see under direct speech we have now, ago, once, these, here, come. So now in direct speech changes to then or at that time in indirect speech. Ago in direct speech changes to before in indirect speech. At once changes to that moment. This changes to that. These changes to those. Here changes to there. Come changes to go. Today changes to that day. Tomorrow changes to the next day or the following day. Yesterday changes to the day before or the previous day. Next week or next morning changes to the following week or the following morning. So last night changes to the night before. With that, I hope that you are now confident in changing from direct to indirect speech and from indirect to direct speech. So let me give you a practice exercise so that you would be more confident. So pick up any story from reading and literature texts having dialogues or direct speeches. Okay? So from there, you choose 5 dialogues and convert it into reported or indirect speech. Is that clear? Thank you. This is Ishi Jamso signing off with a message. Stay safe, stay home, and practice hygiene. Tashidele.